So welcome to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be going over the practice paper of 2023 Foundation Set 2 Paper 1, which is a non-calculated paper. Now as always I'll include a question breakdown so you can see which question refers to which topic, just in case you can't work out a question you can then go back and revise it. So let's get started on this GCSE Maths Foundation practice paper 2023 Set 2 Paper 1, which is a non-calculated paper. So looking at question 1, and let me just zoom in just so we can see the question on the screen a little bit clearer. So question 1 says write down one multiple of 6. So for this question all you need to do is just write down any number that is in the 6 times table. So you could go from 6, 12, 18 all the way to 60, 66, 600, 660 million. As long as it's a multiple of 6, any answer. But remember that you only need to give one. Don't write a list, so any of those would be absolutely fine. So I'll go on a limb and go for 18. The next question, question 2, says write down a number in each box to make the correct statement. Now for this you could have absolutely any number at all, but what you need to do is make sure that this number is smaller out of the two and this one is the larger out of the two. Moving on to question 3, it says solve this equation. So here we need to add 3. So here it's going to be 9 plus 3, which gives me an answer of 12. And again, for 1 mark, you don't have to show you're working out. For 1 mark questions, just writing the right answer would be fine. And similarly for question 4, y times y is y squared. Moving on to question 5, it says work out 1/5 of 65. So again, what we do here is we divide by the denominator and multiply by the numerator. So it's going to be 65 divided by 5. So you can either use the bus stop method to do this, so that's going to be 1 remainder 1 and then 3, so the answer is 13. For question 5b, we're working with decimals, so we're using BIDMAS, so we need to do this bit first. So 3.4 divided by 2 is 1.7, and then 1.7 plus 4.8 is going to give me 5 carry the 1, so it's going to be 6.5. For question 6, we're collecting like terms, so we've got 8a plus 2a, which is 10a, and then I've got positive 4, take away 3, gives me 1b. So I can either write that as b, or you could write 10a plus 1b. So moving on to question 7, it says the bar chart shows information about medals won by Kenya at the Commonwealth Games. So here we've got 4 gold, we've got 8 silver, and we've got 5 bronze. And the question is asking us to show the information in a pictogram, and we're using squares represents 2 medals. So for gold, if I write down the numbers, so I've got 4, 8 and 5. So if one box represents 2, I need to represent 4, so that's going to be 2 boxes. For silver, that's going to be 4 boxes, or something that resembles boxes. And for bronze, that's going to be 5, so that's going to be 2 and a half. And again, you could have your half either, so you can either split it diagonally, you could also split it horizontally, you could also split it vertically as well. Moving on to question 8, it says here is a number machine, and it says work out the output when the input is 5. So if I put 5 here, so I'm going to have 5 times 2, which is 10, take away 1, which is 9. Then for question 8b says work out the input when the output is 19. So here for the output I need to do, if I'm going the opposite direction, I need to use the opposite. So I'm going to have 19 plus 1 divided by 2. So 19 plus 1 is 20, divided by 2 is 10. Then for question 9a, adding fractions. So here we've got our denominators the same. So all I need to do is just simply add the numerators together. So 2 plus 4 is 6, and it's 6 over 7, and I can't simplify that. For 9b, we're dividing, so we keep the first fraction, we flip the second fraction, and we replace the division symbol with a multiply. So 3 times 10 is 30, and 8 times 7 is 56. And I can simplify that fraction by dividing by 2, by 2. So we get 15 over 28. And I can't simplify that any further, so there is my final answer. Now again, make sure you try and write your answers in the answer box, but I'm not doing that just so that it fills the space. So, we can actually see it on the screen rather. So looking at question 10, it says in a quiz, teams are asked 10 questions. Teams score 2 points for a correct answer, 0 points for a question that's not attempted, and -1 if they get the incorrect answer. Team A has these results, and we want to work out the total number of points. So for correct, we've got 6, so that's going to be 6 times 2, plus the not attempted, that's going to be 1 times 0, or just 0. And for the incorrect ones, we're going to have 3 times -1. And then we just need to simplify this. So 6 times 2 is 12, plus 0 minus 3. So 12 minus 3 gives us a total score of 9. It then says for question Team B, Team B answers 8 out of 10 questions correctly. Work out the percentage of Team B's answers correctly. So it's going to be 8 out of 10. So if I want to convert that as a percentage, I can either make the denominator 100, so multiply by 10. So the numerator is going to be 80, so then it's going to be 80%. Or you could know that 8 over 10 is 0.8, and that as a percentage is 80%. Moving on to question 11, it says that a sequence of patterns uses black squares and white squares. Here is the first 3 patterns. How many black squares will there be in pattern 4? Well, if we start by just writing B, then here I can see I've got 4, then I've got 6, and then I've got 8. So you can see that the difference in the black squares is increasing by 2. So therefore the next pattern is going to be 8 plus 2, which is 10. For 11b, it says circle the expression for the number of black squares in pattern n. Well, for this you can see, well, if I do my sequence, I've got n, 1, 2, 3, 4. The number of black squares is 4, 6, 8, 10. So then working out the nth term, which is basically what it's asking me, I've got plus 2. So it's going to be 2n. And then what do I need to get from 2 to 4 is add 2. So the nth term is going to be 2n plus 2, which is my 4th option. The next question then says, will the number of black squares always be even? Tick a box. Well, if I have 2n plus 2, well, 2n is always going to be even because we're multiplying any number by 2 is going to give us an even number. And if I add an even number to an even number, it's going to give me an even answer. So the answer is going to be yes. Then moving on to question 12, it says that a bag contains red counters and blue counters in the ratio of 1 to 2. What fraction of the counters are red? So here we've got 1 out of 3 parts. So this as a fraction is 1 over 3. Moving on to question 13, it says work out the value of x. Well, we know that all angles inside a triangle are up to 180. So 3x plus 2x plus 90 equals 180. 5x equals 90 equals 180. So 5x equals 90, and then divide by 5, and I get x equals 18 degrees. Moving on to question 14, it says 90 drinks are to be provided for people attending a school fete. A jug contains orange squash that can fill 12 paper cups, and a jug containing coffee can fill 8 china cups. 63 people would like orange squash, while 27 people would prefer coffee. What is the least number of jugs needed to provide everyone with their chosen drink? So looking at this, if we do 63 divided by 12, now that number there, how many 12s going to 63? At a guess is going to be 5 point something. Now, because obviously I can't use my calculator, but I'm just going to say it's 5 point something. Now, we could actually write it as a mixed number. So it's going to be 5 and it's going to be 5 1/4 jugs needed. Then if I then move on to the coffee, so let me just title this. So this is OS and this is the coffee. I can spell it. Just about, there we go. And here we're doing 27 divided by 8. So 27 divided by 8 is going to give me 3 3/8 jugs needed. Now obviously we're looking at whole jugs, so this is going to be approximately 6 jugs, and this is going to be approximately 4 jugs. So altogether I'm going to need a minimum of 10 jugs. Question 15a says a total of 2 square numbers is 100. What are the 2 square numbers? So if I just write down the list of square numbers, I've got 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81, 100. I need to pick 2 numbers that added together give me 100. And the correct answer you should have is 64 and 36. And you can write those numbers in any order. Moving on to question 15b, it says Kim says the total of any 2 different square numbers is always even. Are they correct? So for this, we just need to give an example. So if we add any 2 square numbers, is the answer always going to be even? Well, if I add an odd number, an odd square plus an even square, then it's going to equal an odd number. And as an example, I could say 25 plus 16 equals 41, which is odd. So is Kim correct? No, they are not. Moving on to question 16, it says work out the value of 3x minus 5y when x equals 4 and y equals 2. So here I've got 2 times, and I've got 3 times 4, which is 12, and 5 times minus 2 is minus 10, so it's going to be minus 10. So working this out, I've got 2 times 12 minus 10, which is positive 22, giving me a final answer of 44. Question 17, it says factorise. So what's the highest common factor of 15 and 5? Well, that's going to be 5. And then what do I have to, now we haven't got a common letter, so 5 times what gives me 15, that's going to be 3, and I need an x. And 5 times what gives me 5, well, that's just 1. I can write 1, or I could just leave as it is, and I need another y. So the correct answer should be 5 lots of 3x plus 1. Moving on to question 18, it says that Adrian changes his car every 3 years. Brian changes his car every 8 years. Both changed their cars in 2022. So it says, which of these years did Adrian change his car? We're looking at Adrian. If we know that he changed it in 22, now all the options are less. So if we know that Adrian changed his car every 3 years, if I take away 3, that becomes 219, then 216, or 206, then 2013. And again, what I'm doing is I'm looking out for when one of these options comes up, and 2010, which is my second option. It then says, when is the next year after 2022 that both Adrian and Brian change their cars? So if I have Adrian and I've got Brian, and I've got 2022. Now Adrian changes his car every 3 years, Brian changes his car every 8 years. So if I then just wrote down all those numbers and said, and just tried to pick out which is the first number that appears in both those 2 lists. Alternately, what you could do is work out the lowest common multiple of 3 and 8, which is 24. And then if I add that to 2022, that gives me a final answer of 2046. It then says, in any leap year, the number made by the last 2 digits is divisible by 4. For example, 2004 and 2016 were leap years because 04 and 06 are divisible by 4. Give a reason why Brian will never change his car in a leap year. Now for this, we know that he changes his car in 22. Now if I then add any multiple of 8, in which you could give an example, then that is not going to be a multiple of 4. And the reason for that is because although this is a multiple of 4, 22 is not a multiple of 4. So if I add a multiple of 4 with another multiple of 4, it's going to give me a multiple of 4. But if one of them is not a multiple of 4, it basically means it's not a multiple of 4. So anything along those lines. You could also say something along the lines of that is basically 2 years before a leap year, so, or in between 2 leap years, would be a viable answer. Moving on to question 19, it says that here is a fair 5-sided spinner. Work out the probability of scoring an even number with one spin. So in terms of the even numbers, that's 2s and 4. So here we've got 3 out of 5 options. So there is our probability. For question 19b, it says work out the probability of scoring a total of 8. Well, there's one or two ways in which you could do this. So if I do a sample space diagram, and I've got 4, let me just check those numbers. Yep, they're correct. And then I do 1, 2, 3, 4. And if I write down all the possible combinations, now again, this is not essential. And just change the colours. So that's 2, 3, 3, 4, 5, and then we've got 3, and 4, and 5, 6, 6, and we've got 6 and 7, 8, and as you can see, I've got 1 out of 25 is my option. The other alternative you could have done is done 1 over 5 multiplied by 1 over 5, and that would have given me 1 over 25. So lots of different ways in which you could have worked out the answer. But for 3 marks, it is really important that you do show some form of working out. Moving on to question 20, let me just zoom out so we can actually see the question on the screen. So it says that a diagram, well, it did say, a diagram shows distances by road 4 cities. Sam drives from Cardiff to Leeds via Birmingham, and Tim drives, so let's just highlight this. So Sam goes from Cardiff to Leeds via Birmingham, so he's going to go this route. And Tim drives from Cardiff to Leeds, via Liverpool. So he's going in this route here. And it says that Tim drives 18 miles more than Sam. Work out the distance by road of Cardiff to Liverpool. So what we wanted to work out is this distance here, which we don't know, so I'm just going to call that x. Now, if I know that Sam, oh, I don't know where I wrote same, so let's get rid of that. Apologies, Sam. So Sam travels, and it's going to be 88 plus 92, which is 180 miles. Then for Tim, we know that he's going to travel x to get from Cardiff to Liverpool plus 64, and we know that that's 18 more than what Sam has travelled, so that's going to be 198 miles. So if I, and the question is asking me to work out x, so if I take this equation, I've got x equals 64 equals 198, so x equals 198 minus 64, which gives me 132 miles. So the distance of Cardiff to Liverpool is 132 miles. Actually 34. Apologies. And let me just write. There we go. And moving on to question 20b, it says Eve drove 180 miles from Cardiff to Leeds. She drove the first 125 miles at 50 miles an hour and the remaining distance at 60 miles per hour. Find the total time that Eve was driving. Well, for this, I need to set up my distance, speed, time triangle. Now, for the first part, we've got that, well, in terms of using this, I know that time equals distance divided by speed. So for the first part, her distance was 125 miles and her speed was 50 miles per hour. So the time is going to be 125 divided by 50, and if I simplify this fraction, I divide both numbers by 25, in which I get 5 over 2. So the answer then is 2.5 hours. Then for the second part of the journey, well, the distance that they've travelled is going to be 180 take away 125, which gives me an answer of 55 miles. We know that the speed is 60 miles per hour. So the time is going to be 55 divided by 60. Now, that gives me, well, I can easily, because it's over 60, that's going to basically be 55 minutes. So then the total time is going to be 2 hours and 30 minutes plus 55 minutes, which gives me a total time of 3 hours and 25 minutes. Or you could say 3 and 25 over 60, and 25 over 60 is 5 over 12. So you could say, could give your answer in hours, or you could give it in hours and minutes. And I'd probably say hours and minutes is by far going to be the easiest. It then says, if Eve drove the whole distance at 50 miles per hour, how will this affect her journey? Well, you could give any of these following answers. You could either say that she's going to travel slower. You could say that it's going to take longer in time. Or you could even just say it's going to take more time. So anything along those lines will be fine for that 1 mark. So moving on to question 21, it says 30 pupils were asked about their pets. The Venn diagram shows some information about their answers. What does the number 9 represent? Well, the number 9 represents the amount of people who have both a cat and a dog as pets. So something along those lines would be absolutely fine. Question 21b, it says 16 pupils have a cat, 17 have a dog. Complete the Venn diagram. Well, for 16 cats, or 16 people have cats, so that means that this blue circle needs to add up to 16. So if 9 people are in that shared area, then to work out this number, I've just got to do 16 take away 9, which is 7. Then we know that 17 people have a dog, so this dog circle needs to add up to 17. So 17 take away 9 is going to give me 8 rather. And then all we then need to do for the outside number is do 20, is it 30 or 20? 30 people. So if I do 30, take away 7, minus the 9, minus the 8, so that becomes 17, 24, so that then becomes 6. Then moving on to question 22, it says brass is made by mixing 7 parts of copper to 3 parts of zinc. How much copper is needed to make 30 kilograms of brass? So for this, what we need to do is we've got a ratio of 7 to 3 copper to zinc, and we want a total of 30. So if I then do 30 divided by 10 parts, which is 3, and then copper is 7 parts, so 7 parts equals 3 times 7, which is 21. Then for question 22b, it says Fred has 35 kilograms of copper and 12 kilograms of zinc. What is the greatest amount of brass he can make? Well, if we use all copper, then what we have is that 35 kilograms equals 7 parts. So 1 part equals 5 kgs. And so 3 parts is going to equal 15 kg of zinc needed, so which is not enough, so but I do have 12, so therefore the biggest I can make then is, if I take a part away from 35, is going to give me 35 kgs plus and 12 is going to give me 30, well, it's going to be, sorry, 10, so that's going to give me 35 kgs if I use the maximum number of copper. Then if I then work out to use all the zinc, then what I've got is I've got 12 kgs equals 3 parts. So then 1 part equals 4 kilograms. And if copper is 7 parts, so then 7 times 4 is 28 kilos of copper, which is absolutely fine because I've got 35. So then 28 plus 12 equals 40. So the maximum amount of zinc, brass I can make is going to be 40 kgs. Moving on to question 23, it says 2 identical circles fit inside a rectangle as shown. Work out the area of the shaded area. Well, looking at this, well, if 2 circles fit inside and got a length of 12, then that means that one circle is going to have a diameter of 6, which means then a radius of 3. Now the shaded area is always the area of the big shape, so let me just get rid of that bracket. So it's the area of the rectangle minus the area of the circle times 2. So the area of the rectangle is going to be, well, this distance here is going to be 6 as well. So that's going to be 12 times 6, which is 72. And the area of the circle is going to be using pi r squared, and r is 3. So it's going to be 2 times pi times 3 squared. So that's 2 times pi times 9, which gives me an answer of 18 pi. So then the total shaded area is going to be 72 take away 18 pi. Moving on to question 24, it says bag A contains 20 green balls and 12 yellow balls. Bag B contains 15 green balls and 9 yellow balls. John says that it is more likely to get a green ball from bag A than bag B because there are more green balls in bag A than bag B. Is he correct? So let's first of all work out the probability of getting a green from bag A. Well, looking at this, there are 20 green balls from a total of 32. And so if I simplify this fraction by dividing by what we've got 4, so it's going to be 5 over 8. Then if I then work out the probability of getting a green from bag B, well, that's going to be 15 over 15 plus 9, which is 24. I can then simplify this fraction by dividing by 3, so that then becomes 5 over 8. And as you can see, that the probabilities are the same. So you can see that the probability are both the same. So is there more chance of getting a green from bag A than bag B? The answer is no, because the probability are both the same. Moving on to question 25, it says write 61.6 times 10 to the power 3 in standard form. Well, hopefully you'll be able to spot that this is not in standard form because this number is not written as a number between 1 and 10. So what we need to do is, if we make this number smaller by moving the decimal point, I then need to make the power bigger by the number of places that I've moved the decimal place. So it's going to be to the power of 4. So the correct answer should be 6.16 times 10 to the power of 4. Then moving on to question 26, it says Adele works out the answer to 4.1, take away root 30 over 19.23. She says that the answer is positive. Is she correct? Well, in order for it to be correct, the numerator, because the denominator is just a single number, the denominator needs to be a positive number. Now, root 30 is between 5 and 6. And the reason why we know that, because what number can you square root? Square numbers. What square number is 30 in between? Well, it's between 25 and 36. So that means that the answer must be between 5 and 6. So therefore, 4.1 minus a number that's between 5 and 6 is always going to equal a negative number. And a negative number divided by a positive number is always going to equal a negative number. So is Adele correct? The answer is no. For question 27, it says house prices rise at a rate of 10% each year. In January 2020, Greta bought a house for 20,000. What is the value of a house in 2022? So what we need to do is add 10% twice. So starting off with 200,000, I'm going to add 10%. Now 10% of that is going to be 20,000. So if I do 200,000 plus 20,000, that's going to give me 220,000. So then if I then start with 220,000, I add another 10%, which now it's going to be 22,000, in which then I get £242,000. So here the correct answer is 242,000. Moving on to question 28, says use a ruler and a pair of compasses to construct a perpendicular bisector of A and B. Now for this it's going to be rather difficult, so what we need to do is basically set your compass, put the pin on point A, and then what you then need to do is to measure your compass so that it's a distance that is more than halfway from A and B. And what you then need to do is not mess around with the page, which is what I'm doing, is then you want to draw a circle such that the radius of the circle is more than halfway and the center of the circle is at point A. So if I draw something that looks like this, then what you then want to do is make sure that you're not changing your compass or adjusting your compass, I should say. Is you then want to repeat that process, but this time draw a circle with center of B. Now this is completely utterly messed my diagram up, so let me just give you an idea of what you should have, and yeah, let's go with that. So from this, what I should have is drawn two circles just so that the two circles do intersect, so they do cross over, and so it looks like a bit of like a Venn diagram. So if I just mark the centers, and then what you then want to do is with a ruler is draw a line through the two intersection points. So let me just do this first as accurately as I can, and then just extend that line, and you should have something that looks like this. Now one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to rub out the circles or arcs, and the green line is your final answer. So this line here is my perpendicular bisector. The next question, 29, says Sarah has a circular piece of card with a diameter of 10 centimeters. She wants to cut a rectangle whose sides or length are 8 by 6. Use Pythagoras Theorem to show that she can cut out the rectangle from the circular card. So for this, what we want to do is we want to work out what the diagonal of the card is going to be. So if x is 10 or more, the rectangle can be cut. So hopefully what you've done is you can spot that it's going to be a Pythagoras question. So 8 squared plus 6 squared equals x squared. So I've got 64 plus 36 equals 100. So x squared equals 100. So x equals 10. Well, you can't equal minus 10 because we're dealing with length. So x equals 10. So again, we can show that as 10 equals 10, the rectangle can be cut. And there we go.